Hello and welcome. My name is Emily Rosner, and in this video today we will be doing a lab regarding a Kali Linux tool called John the Ripper. Um, just as a short introduction, we will be learning how an administrator can test the password strength of user accounts within their managed system. We'll be using a dictionary attack to identify a weak password before any threat actors could potentially take advantage of it. So if users, even with the most basic of permissions, have weak passwords that end up being brute forced by an attacker, the attacker can still use that access as a baseline to elevate their permissions within the system and attempt to steal valuable information or do other types of damage. So this demonstration also complements material covered in the CompTIA Security Plus certification, since password attacks are incredibly common. Um, and while it may seem improper for an administrator to be attempting to figure out passwords for users within the system, sort of probing and things like that, one could also argue that it's better for an administrator to find and remediate a weak password before a threat actor finds it and uses it for unintended purposes. So the required resources for this lab are obviously Kali Linux, just a standard distribution. Any version of Kali Linux from 2014 or later should have John the Ripper pre-installed. But if you aren't sure or you don't actually have the tool installed, you can always just run this command sudo apt install John, and that should install John the Ripper. I can enter it now, and it'll ask me for my password, and then it will, yeah, it'll probably say that I already have it installed, so it didn't have to newly install it. So anyway, just to get started with like a little background and scenario, today we will be creating a user account by the name of Bob, and Bob will be our example of a user with a potentially weak password. So, let's say he's a typical hardworking office employee with a workplace account managed by the system administrator. And he believes that his password is strong, but and it is sufficient enough, but we'll soon find out that that might not necessarily be the case. So to get started, first we are going to enable root privileges. This will allow us sort of to take on the system administrator role to make system modifications and to access the sensitive files that we need in order to check for any weak passwords. So in order to get root, we just want to do sudo su, and I already entered in my password before, so I don't have to enter it again, and we are in the root user. And now in order to add our new user Bob, we just want to do user add m bob g sudo, and it might take a second there. And it should have added the user, and we can also set the password for this example. And for the password, we're going to be setting it to Teddy1, but honestly, you can set it to any sort of password that you want for this activity. It won't really change the results that much. I would encourage you to set it to a plain like word in the English language, because that's probably what's going to allow you to get the best out of the lab. But for this example, I just set it to Teddy1, spelled exactly like here. And so now that we set the password, we can begin locating the username and password details on the system. So there are two files that we're going to be using to get these details and to crack the user password. They are etc password and etc shadow. And the etc password file stores pretty much every registered user account that has access to the system. So this Kali Linux distribution that I have here. And it's a colon separated file. And I can show you what that means in a minute. But yeah, it basically just contains every username in the system. And etc shadow is accessible only to the root user, which is why we gave ourselves root access, and contains the encrypted password for every user in the system. So they sort of go hand in hand, etc password, etc shadow. And etc shadow has the password stored in an encrypted format, so it's definitely not in plain text. Just in case, if anyone manages to even access the file, it will be encrypted. And to locate these files, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to find the etc directory located in the root directory. So we can get to root by doing cd slash, and that will take us to root. And if we do ls, we can see etc is right here. So we can go in there, and once we do another ls, we'll be able to find those two files. So the first one we want is user password, which is here. And we can see it's definitely owned just by the root, and only the root can access it. And then shadow is going to be a bit more below, right here. And you'll notice that there's almost duplicates, so it'll say shadow dash in password with a dash, but we just want to use the shadow and password files without the dashes for this example. So now that we're in this directory and we know that those files are there, we can run the command unshadow. And I already have it typed here, but etc password and etc shadow, we're going to put those into a file with all the details that we need in order to perform our password cracking attack. So you're just going to enter this command here, and we can verify that this is created by doing another ls, and we see that it's right here. So step 4, we're going to locate the word archive that John the Ripper has to offer in order for us to perform this attack. And it's essentially just a long, expansive list of a bunch of common passwords and words in the English dictionary that a user would be likely to just set their password to. So that's going to be located, if you follow this here, you have your John the Ripper tool installed, this should bring up that file. And I encourage you to just scroll through it and just see a lot of the interesting passwords that people, I guess, commonly use. There's definitely patterns that can be seen. The most common passwords probably just password, or an easy sequence of numbers like 6 zeros or 1 2 3 4 5 6. And it's really interesting in terms of human behavior. And if you want to exit out of here, you can just hit escape and then colon quit exclamation mark without and that won't save any changes, and it'll take you back to the terminal. So now that we basically have all of our resources gathered to perform this attack, we know where they are, we can use this following command, and it will traverse the word list that we just looked at, and it will find if there are any potential matching hash values for the password hashes that we grabbed from the password and shadow files. And this might take a few seconds, but here is the command. It's going to be John word list right here. Word list equals user slash share slash John slash password dot list. And we're going to give it our password file with all the details. And you definitely want to make sure you include this format equals crypt, because it will be able to decrypt those hashes. So hit enter here, and we'll just wait a few moments. And it will give you a little bit of information in the beginning up front. It'll say that it found, or it loaded 2 password hashes with 2 different salts. Kali Linux, I believe, uses ccrypt or generic crypt for its hashing algorithm. But you can see it could be attempting a bunch of other different hashes. And if John the Ripper is able to successfully decrypt any passwords, it will display them and their corresponding name in yellow, like right here. So it was able to find Teddy1, and it lists as username Bob's password. And there we go. So once the algorithm is done, it will give you this brief output, just letting you know that it tried to guess all of the passwords that you passed into it in the file. And it will say session completed, and it will say use the show option to display all of the correct passwords reliably, but they're pretty much just all listed here already. You can see it correctly managed to crack Bob's password as Teddy1. And this is really interesting and almost sort of alarming because that only took a matter of seconds, right? So with the right algorithms, basically 8-character passwords can be cracked in a matter of hours if there's really no other obstacles in the way. 7 characters can be cracked sometimes in a matter of minutes. And as we just saw here, a 6-character password can be cracked in a matter of seconds, especially if it contains common words and phrases and numbers and the like. So, because of this, nearly every modern day application requires more than just letters and numbers for an acceptable password. And some reject using words from the English dictionary altogether. Um, so, in this lab, we tested common passwords from the English language, and imagine if we used an algorithm that could test every possible character combination. You know, it would sort of be inevitable at that point that the password would eventually be discovered, and then a threat actor could potentially um, perform malicious activity if they're able to get access. So you can also exit out of the root user by just simply putting exit and enter, and you will go back into your regular user um, command line. And if you wish to delete the account that we created for the purpose of this lab, you can also use the command sudo user delete -r and then the username Bob. And this will probably spit out this message here where it said it couldn't find its mail spool, but that's fine. That's to be expected because that wasn't set up. Um, but the /r or the -r is helpful because it will also delete the home directory for the user. So yeah, just a quick lab that basically wraps it all up. And I hope you enjoyed.